Most people don't realize they are already conquered, not by governments, not by systems, but by their own reactions. Think about it. One careless comment can hijack your mood for hours. One unexpected setback can derail an entire week. Someone disrespects you and suddenly you're no longer thinking, you're reacting. That's not freedom. That's captivity. And the bars of that prison are invisible, built out of anger, fear, pride, and the constant need to be understood. There is another way to live, a way that divides those who move the world from those who are moved by it. A way of thinking so cold, so precise, it turns chaos into leverage. 5 centuries ago, while others wrote poetry about virtue and honor, Machiavelli studied something far more dangerous: human behavior under pressure. He didn't ask how people should act. He watched how they actually do. And what he discovered still cuts deeper today than it ever did then. Here is the first truth you must swallow if you want power over your life. The moment people can read you, they can use you. Most people wear their inner world on their face. They broadcast excitement, frustration, insecurity, desire. They call this authenticity. In reality, it's leakage. It's like walking into a negotiation with your cards face up on the table and hoping the other side plays fair. They won't. They never do. Life is a poker game disguised as a conversation. The weakest player isn't the one with bad cards. It's the one who can't hide them. When your emotions spike, you reveal your pressure points. Anger tells people where to poke. Fear shows them where to push. Desire shows them what to dangle in front of you. Predictability is not honesty. Predictability is vulnerability. Machiavelli watched rulers fall for this trap over and over again. They reacted too fast. They took insults personally. They showed excitement when they should have shown restraint, fear when they should have shown patience. Their enemies didn't defeat them with strength. They defeated them with timing, with observation, with waiting. This is why the mask matters. Understand this clearly. The mask is not about lying. It's about separation. Separation between what you feel and what you show. Your emotions are real, but they are also information. And information, once leaked, cannot be taken back. The disciplined mind ensures that what happens inside you does not automatically escape into the world. Picture a fortress. From the outside, it looks calm, silent, impenetrable. Inside, calculations are being made. Routes mapped. Counters prepared. That is how a strategist lives. When something good happens, there is no celebration on the surface, only quiet assessment. When something bad happens, there is no panic, only analysis. When someone tries to provoke you, there is no emotional flare, only a silent question. Is this worth my energy? This is what control looks like. People often mistake this for coldness. It's not. Coldness is numbness. Control is clarity. The controlled person feels deeply but acts selectively. They do not give strangers the keys to their nervous system. They do not outsource their inner state to external events. Start here. This is your first discipline. When something triggers you, pause. Do not correct. Do not explain. Do not defend. Let your face go still. Let your voice stay level. Let the moment pass without feeding it. Watch how the dynamic shifts when you remove the reaction the other side was expecting. Mystery is not created by saying clever things. Mystery is created by restraint. When people cannot read you, they begin to hesitate. When they hesitate, they lose leverage. And when they lose leverage, you gain space. Space to think, to choose, to move with intention instead of impulse. This is the foundation. Before strategy, before timing, before power, there is this: mastery over what you reveal. Because the one who controls their expression controls the game. Once you stop leaking yourself into the world, a second, more uncomfortable truth emerges. Most people are not who you think they are. This is where illusions die. You see others through the lens of your own values. If you are loyal, you assume loyalty. If you are honest, you assume honesty. If you are kind, you expect kindness to return. That instinct feels noble, but strategically, it's disastrous. It blinds you. It sets traps you willingly walk into. Machiavelli had no patience for this kind of self-deception. He didn't divide people into good and evil. He divided them into predictable and unpredictable, useful and dangerous, stable and situational. He understood that human beings are not guided by principles as much as by incentives. They are consistent only when consistency costs them nothing. This doesn't mean people are monsters. It means they are human. Most people are loyal until loyalty becomes expensive, honest until lying is easier, supportive until supporting you threatens their position. This is not cynicism. It's pattern recognition. And the strategist lives by patterns, not by hopes. The mistake most people make is believing words over behavior. Words are cheap. Promises cost nothing. Anyone can say, "I've got you." The real test comes when having you requires sacrifice, when it costs time, status, comfort, or opportunity. That's where the truth surfaces. Think of people as mirrors under pressure. Pressure reveals the real image. Machiavelli warned that men are easily deceived because they want to be deceived. They want to believe. They want reassurance. They want the world to be simpler than it is. But the strategist does not look for comfort. He looks for clarity. He studies what people do when no one is watching. He notices who stays consistent when there is nothing to gain. Here is the metaphor to remember. Trust is not a gift. It's a contract. And contracts are earned through repeated evidence, not emotional closeness. Start watching patterns instead of personalities. Notice who shows up when you are inconvenient, who remembers you when you are no longer useful, who keeps their word when breaking it would be easier. These signals are quiet, but they are decisive. Most relationships don't end because of betrayal. They end because of reality finally being acknowledged. This awareness changes how you invest yourself. You stop overgiving. You stop explaining. You stop trying to rescue people who have shown you, repeatedly, that they only take. Your energy becomes selective, not generous by default. And this is where many people panic. They confuse realism with cruelty. It's not, it's economy. You are managing finite resources, time, focus, emotional bandwidth. Wasting them on unreliable structures is not kindness. It's negligence toward yourself. Think of it like building a bridge. You don't test it by imagining it will hold. You test it with weight, with stress, with time. Anyone can look solid in calm weather. Storms reveal engineering. Once you see people clearly, you stop being surprised by them. And surprise is where pain lives. Clarity removes drama because drama feeds on false expectations. You also stop trying to change people. That urge comes from attachment to who you wish they were. The strategist drops that attachment. He accepts reality and adapts to it. Some people get distance. Some get boundaries. A few earn trust. All are treated according to what they demonstrate, not what they promise. This is power without hostility, precision without bitterness. When you see clearly, you move differently. You no longer chase alignment where it doesn't exist. You no longer bleed for people who wouldn't bruise for you. You become calm, measured, and difficult to disappoint because you expect nothing that hasn't been proven. And that clarity sets the stage for the next discipline. Because once you stop misreading people, you must confront something even harder: your own emotional reactions. That's where real mastery begins. If you want to know where most people truly lose power, look at how fast they react. Reaction is the silent killer of strategy. Guarantee this is true. At some point, you reacted emotionally and made a situation worse. You said something you couldn't take back. You moved too early. You defended when silence would have protected you. That wasn't because you're weak. It's because emotions move faster than thought. Emotions don't analyze. They surge. They evolve to keep us alive in emergencies, not to help us win complex social games. In modern life, that same speed becomes a liability. The moment emotion takes the wheel, your opponent no longer has to outthink you. They just have to wait. Machiavelli watched this pattern endlessly. Someone gets provoked and responds instantly. Someone feels threatened and overcommits. Someone feels disrespected and lashes out. And every time, the outcome is the same. They reveal themselves, expose their intentions, and walk straight into a trap that didn't even need to be set. The rule is simple and brutal: react fast, lose hard. So what separates the strategist from the amateur? Delay. When something hits you emotionally, that is not a signal to act. It is a signal to pause, to do nothing, to let the wave pass without letting it move your body or your mouth. The first reaction is almost always distorted. It's exaggerated by ego, fear, and imagination. It feels urgent, but urgency is often an illusion. Think of emotions like an alarm system, useful for alerting you that something matters, useless for telling you what to do next. The strategist allows the alarm to ring, but refuses to run blindly toward it. Here is the metaphor. Amateurs fight in the fog. Masters wait for the fog to lift. By the time they move, the battlefield looks completely different. When you delay your reaction, something powerful happens. Perspective enters. You start noticing motives instead of insults, patterns instead of moments, games instead of words. What felt like an attack may reveal itself as bait. What felt personal may reveal itself as projection. What felt urgent may reveal itself as irrelevant. This is how you turn emotional events into information. Create a rule for yourself. Any decision involving strong emotion gets delayed by at least one sleep cycle. Not an hour, not 10 minutes, one full night. If it still matters after clarity returns, then and only then you act. Most problems don't survive this delay. They dissolve on their own. Others shrink. A few reveal their true shape. And those are the only ones worth responding to. When you finally respond, it should feel surgical, calm, minimal, effective, not designed to release emotion, but to produce outcome. Silence becomes an option. Distance becomes an option. A single measured sentence becomes more powerful than a heated explanation ever could. This is why controlled people seem unbothered. Not because nothing affects them, but because nothing controls them. Picture a chessboard. The emotional player moves the moment they feel threatened. The strategist lets the opponent reveal their plan, then responds 3 moves later with finality. One move feels satisfying. The right move ends the game. Emotional restraint doesn't make you passive. It makes you dangerous. Because people can't bait what doesn't react. They can't rush what doesn't panic. They can't manipulate what doesn't leak urgency. Over time, something shifts. Others begin to hesitate around you. They watch their words. They test less. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're unpredictable in the one way that matters. You don't respond on their timeline. And this is the paradox. By acting less, you gain more control. Your calm becomes a signal. Your pause becomes pressure. Your silence forces others to fill the space, often revealing more than they intended. While they talk, you observe. While they rush, you wait. While they burn energy, you conserve it. This is emotional mastery, not suppression, not denial, command. And once you can command your reactions, you unlock the next layer of power. Because now you're no longer ruled by moments, you're prepared for outcomes. That's where contingency begins. Once you stop reacting and start thinking ahead, a brutal reality becomes impossible to ignore. Anyone with only one plan is already defeated. Dependence is the most common form of weakness, and most people don't see it until it's too late. They build their lives around a single pillar, one income stream, one role, one relationship, one identity, one path forward. As long as that pillar stands, they feel safe, confident, grounded. But the world does not reward single-point stability. The world is volatile. Circumstances shift. People change. Systems collapse without warning. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He didn't trust fortune. He prepared for it. He watched powerful men fall not because they lacked intelligence or effort, but because they lacked options. When their situation changed, they froze. They had nowhere else to go. And when you have nowhere else to go, you can be controlled. This is the essence of strategic vulnerability, needing one thing too much. Think of it like a rope bridge over a canyon. If there is only one crossing, anyone who controls that bridge controls you. They can threaten it, tax it, or destroy it, and you are trapped. But if you have multiple crossings, hidden paths, alternative routes, the threat loses its power. You are no longer cornered. Power begins the moment you are not dependent on a single outcome. This applies everywhere, financially, socially, emotionally, psychologically. Ask yourself uncomfortable questions. If your main source of income vanished tomorrow, what would you do? If the person you rely on most disappeared, would your structure collapse? If the role you identify with lost relevance, who would you be? These questions aren't meant to scare you. They are meant to wake you up. Vulnerability is not created by hardship. It is created by concentration. When too much of your stability is tied to one thing, that thing owns you. It dictates your behavior. It shapes your decisions. It limits your courage. This is why people tolerate disrespect at work, why they stay silent in relationships, why they accept conditions they hate. They are not weak. They are trapped. Machiavelli's solution was simple but demanding. Always build a second path while the first one is still working, not when you're desperate, not when collapse has already started. Now, this is what preparedness looks like in practice. You develop skills that transfer. You build relationships without dependency. You save resources not for comfort, but for leverage. You cultivate independence of mind so your identity does not collapse when a role changes. Preparedness is not paranoia. It is composure under uncertainty. Think of a seasoned general. He doesn't believe his first strategy will survive contact with reality. He assumes disruption. So he prepares alternatives. If Plan A fails, he moves to Plan B without emotion. If Plan B fails, he shifts again. The unprepared panic. The prepared pivot. This is adaptability, the quiet weapon of long-term power. Most people hope things continue as they are. Strategists assume they won't. Hope makes you passive. Preparation makes you mobile, and mobility is freedom. When you have options, your posture changes. You negotiate differently. You speak differently. You walk away faster. You stop clinging. You stop explaining. You stop tolerating pressure tactics because pressure only works on those with no exit. This is why preparedness radiates strength without aggression. People sense it. They may not know why, but they feel it. You're not desperate. You're not hurried. You're not easily cornered. And that alone shifts the balance of power. Start small. Identify one area of your life where you are over-dependent. One pillar carrying too much weight. Then quietly begin building an alternative. No announcements. No validation seeking. Just steady construction. The goal is not to abandon what you have. The goal is to make sure nothing has the power to destroy you in a single strike. Because when the unexpected arrives, and it always does, the prepared do not collapse. They transition. They don't beg fortune for mercy. They adapt. And that adaptability leads to the next truth, the one most people resist until experience forces it on them. Power does not respond to need. Power responds to strength. That is where negotiation truly begins. Here is the final truth most people spend their lives avoiding. Power does not reward good intentions. It responds to leverage. You can be talented, honest, hardworking, even noble, and still be ignored. Because respect is not granted to those who need it. It is given to those who can walk away without flinching. The moment you negotiate from need, you have already surrendered. Machiavelli understood this with brutal clarity. He saw that people do not respect kindness when it comes from weakness. They exploit it. They may praise you, but they do not fear losing you. And what is not feared is eventually crossed. Power respects power. This doesn't mean cruelty. It means capacity. The ability to say no. The ability to refuse. The ability to stand alone without collapsing. When you have options, you don't beg. When you have value, you don't chase. When you have strength, you don't explain yourself endlessly. Think of power like gravity. It doesn't argue. It doesn't announce itself. It simply pulls. Most people try to negotiate by being liked. They overgive. They over-explain. They overstay. They believe that if they just prove their worth long enough, someone will finally acknowledge it. But the opposite happens. The more you need approval, the less you receive respect. Machiavelli's insight was cold but accurate. People are drawn to those who do not need them, not because they are heartless, but because independence signals strength. And strength creates hesitation. Hesitation creates respect. So, how do you build this kind of power? First, independence. Emotional independence. You stop needing validation to feel whole. You stop tying your self-worth to how others respond. When approval becomes optional, your posture changes. You speak slower. You tolerate less. You choose more carefully. Second, options. Always options. Multiple paths forward. Multiple skills. Multiple connections. When no single outcome defines your survival, no one can corner you with threats or pressure. Third, value. You become useful in ways that are hard to replace. You sharpen rare skills. You build competence quietly, not to boast, but to ensure that when you enter a room, you bring something that matters. Fourth, boundaries. This is where power becomes visible. You stop saying yes automatically. You stop being endlessly available. You stop accepting treatment that drains you. Boundaries are not walls. They are signals. They tell the world how to treat you without you having to argue. People will test them. That's normal. When you hold the line calmly, without anger or apology, something shifts. The tests stop. Or the people do. This is where many hesitate. They fear losing connection, but Machiavelli would tell you this: anything that only survives by you shrinking is not a connection worth preserving. Once you operate from strength, timing becomes your ally. You no longer rush. You no longer hesitate. You act when the moment is ripe, not when fear pushes you. Opportunities do not announce themselves. They appear briefly, disguised as instability. The prepared recognize them. The fearful wait. And waiting costs more than action ever does. Finally, you must release the need for approval altogether. Results outlive reputation. People criticize methods until success forces them to justify them. History is not written by the cautious. It is written by those who acted decisively while others hesitated. This does not mean abandoning ethics. It means refusing to let fear of judgment paralyze you. You will be judged whether you act or not. At least let the judgment follow achievement. So here is the awakening. You were never powerless. You were untrained. You were taught to react, to hope, to please, to wait. Now you see the mechanics beneath the surface. You understand restraint, clarity, delay, preparation, leverage. From this moment on, you do not live at the mercy of emotion. You do not trust blindly. You do not react impulsively. You do not build on a single pillar. You do not negotiate from weakness. You move like a strategist, and the world responds differently to those who do, not because they are louder, not because they are cruel, but because they are controlled, prepared, and no longer easy to move. That is the difference between those who endure and those who command. And now you know.